When a huge cat comes to a shelter, his old owners say he doesn't get along with their children. But what they tell the shelter about the cat doesn't match what the shelter workers see. Just a few hours later, something wonderful happens. The Humane Society of Carroll County in Westminster, Maryland had just opened when a man walked in holding the biggest cat the front desk worker had ever seen. The orange and white cat was so big he could hardly fit in the man's arms, which clearly showed why the man looked so uncomfortable. As he started explaining why he was there, the worker at the front desk felt like there was more to his story than he was telling them. They'd seen all kinds of situations at the shelter over the years, and had gotten pretty good at knowing when something wasn't quite right. Moving the cat in his arms, the man said he had to give up the cat because of serious behavior problems. He told them the cat's name was Edgar and said with annoyance, "He keeps bothering our smaller grandchildren. He leaves the bigger kids alone, but he won't stop bothering the little ones. We can't have that in our house." The worker nodded politely, but she'd heard enough to think the man wasn't being completely truthful with her. Usually, pets don't act unfriendly without a good reason, and Edgar looked sad. She couldn't be sure, of course, so she stayed quiet, but she thought the kids had probably been too rough with Edgar and nobody had ever taught them how to treat him nicely. The man put Edgar down on the floor without even giving him one last pet and turned to leave, clearly done with the whole situation. The worker was shocked. She rushed over to Edgar right away. Even though he was huge, the poor cat looked lost and scared, so she slowly bent down to pet him, being careful not to frighten him. To her surprise, Edgar immediately rubbed against her hand and started purring loudly. This didn't match the unfriendly description the man had just given at all. The cat seemed to be a gentle giant, which made the worker wonder even more about what had really happened with his family. Edgar had joined the family when he was small, but as he grew quickly into a huge giant, the situation in the house changed completely. The smaller grandchildren, scared by his size, would run and scream when they saw him coming. Edgar, confused and upset by their reactions, started what the family saw as mean behavior, but what was really just a large, worried cat trying to understand why the little humans were so afraid of him. The more the children screamed and ran, the more Edgar would follow, creating a pattern of fear and confusion. Nobody in the family understood that Edgar wasn't being mean. He was simply a gentle giant overwhelmed by all the chaos around him. Just because he'd been frightened and stressed, he'd been dropped off at the shelter. The huge cat stretched out on the cool floor tiles of the Humane Society. He looked more comfortable now, and the worker couldn't help thinking this was probably the first time in a long while that he could actually relax. The shelter workers moved around him busily. His size had caused quite a stir of amazement and curiosity, since the shelter couldn't remember ever having such a big cat in their care. "We were all a bit surprised by his size," Charles Brown, executive director of the Humane Society, would later say. He weighed in at 21 pounds. It wasn't just his shocking weight, his height was impressive too. He was huge in every way possible. His fur was thick and fluffy, proving what everyone thought. Edgar was a 9-year-old Maine Coon, a breed known for being large and loving, which definitely seemed to describe this gentle giant perfectly. Every time a new animal came into their care, the shelter staff's first step was making an adoption plan. While they loved every animal that came through their doors, it was important to find new homes for them quickly, as long as there weren't any health or behavior problems. Edgar had been checked and seemed fit and healthy, and watching him roll around letting everyone rub his belly showed the shelter team that he was indeed a gentle giant. They were determined to find Edgar a new, better home where he could be his calm and loving self. "As soon as an animal comes into our shelter, we create an adoption plan for it," Executive Director Brown explained. And in Edgar's case, we started a social media campaign. It was clear the cat had plenty of love to give, and they wanted to make sure he'd never have to go through that kind of stress and fear again. Their first plan for getting Edgar adopted was using social media. They knew his special look would definitely get lots of attention on social platforms, and all the shares and comments would increase his visibility and hopefully help him find a new owner quickly. They took many cute and funny photos of him and started the campaign right away. Now, they just had to wait and see what would happen. They'd succeeded with other adoptions using this method, but they were surprised to find that within minutes, Edgar's pictures were spreading like wildfire across Facebook, eventually reaching an amazing 2 million people. His huge size and the description of his gentle personality had caught the attention of countless animal lovers across the country. But Edgar's impact went far beyond just his own adoption. That very day, dozens of other people came to the shelter, inspired by his story to meet other animals needing homes. The shelter felt sure they'd soon get requests from people wanting to take Edgar home, but there was only one person who would actually be able to adopt him. It was Tuesday afternoon, around 3 p.m. on November 29, 2016, when the shelter posted Edgar's photo on Facebook. What happened next shocked everyone. The post exploded across social media, reaching an incredible 2 million views in just hours. 3 hours after the campaign was sent out, Edgar would get his answer. Jenna was lazily looking through her Facebook timeline, not really paying attention to what she was seeing, when Edgar's photo popped up. She stopped mid-scroll, amazed by the cat's size and his beautiful orange fur. "I first saw his photo going around Facebook on Tuesday, and I was amazed," Jenna would later remember. "I've never seen a cat like him before, and he really caught my attention." He's beautiful. She'd been around cats her whole life, and she'd never met one as special as Edgar. It was clear the cat enjoyed attention and was very loving, and something about his expression made Jenna feel an instant connection to him. "As soon as I saw the post, I was like, 'Oh my gosh, look at this cat,'" she would later remember with excitement. She quickly looked online for Maine Coons and was happy to learn they were smart and loving. Jenna had a special place in her heart for adopting rescued animals, especially the adult animals that were sometimes overlooked in favor of puppies and kittens. Her cat, Loki, was playful and full of energy, and she'd been thinking about getting another cat to keep him company. Edgar looked like he'd be perfect. She immediately sent her boyfriend Rich the post. "I messaged my boyfriend, convinced him we needed another animal," she said, "and we went to go and look at him. But would they be too late?" With 2 million people having seen Edgar's photo, surely someone else would have claimed him by now. Rich agreed they should rush to the shelter immediately. "We went to the Humane Society to see if we would be lucky enough to take him home," Jenna explained, her heart racing with both hope and fear. The shelter was completely packed when Jenna and Rich arrived. Cars filled the parking lot. Families streamed through the doors, all because of Edgar. The worker's face was apologetic as she approached them. "I'm sorry, but if you're here about Edgar," she began. Jenna's heart sank. They were too late. But then the worker smiled. "You'll need to wait in line. He's meeting potential families one by one, but he hasn't chosen anyone yet." The wait was painful. Family after family went into the meeting room with Edgar. Some came out shaking their heads. He was too big, too overwhelming. Others seemed interested, discussing adoption paperwork with staff. Jenna watched each group with growing worry, knowing that any one of them could walk away with the cat who had captured her heart from a single photograph. "What if he doesn't like us?" she whispered to Rich. "What if someone else adopts him right before our turn?" The minutes felt like hours. "Sorry for the interruption. Before we continue with the story, I kindly ask you to like the video and subscribe to this channel. It is very important for us. Thank you very much. At last, after waiting for what felt like forever, they heard their names called out. They were led to a quiet room where Edgar was lying down, looking calm despite all the people around him, but Jenna could tell he was tired from meeting so many new people. This was the big moment that would decide what happened to Edgar. Jenna walked over to him slowly, her hands shaking a little. Everything counted on this first meeting. Would Edgar like her the way she hoped? Or would she end up like all the other sad families who left without a pet? She reached out her hand very slowly, holding her breath. Then Edgar did something that made all the difference. He looked straight into her eyes, made the quietest meow, and softly pushed his huge head into her hand. The bond was immediate and powerful. She felt so happy when Edgar greeted her with a gentle rumbling sound and pushed his head against her hand. His sweet nature showed right away, but when she began scratching behind his ears, Edgar's true character came through. He started rolling around and rumbling loudly, looking totally happy. The second Jenna stopped, he nudged her as if wanting more. He has the most amazing personality. He's loving and really calm, Jenna said in wonder, with tears of happiness in her eyes. He's such a special cat, she laughed. I love him already. But the real challenge was still coming. Would Edgar pick them too? As if he knew what she was thinking, Edgar got up, walked straight to Jenna, and pressed his huge body against her legs, rumbling so loudly the whole room shook. The shelter workers looked at each other with knowing smiles. I think he's chosen, one of them said quietly. She had fallen for him right away, and amazingly, he had picked her too. After completing all the adoption forms on that amazing November 29th, 2016, Jenna and her boyfriend took Edgar home. Only 3 hours had gone by since he'd been dropped off at the shelter, but he was already going to his new family. It was an even better outcome than the animal shelter had hoped for. Jenna was so eager to see how Edgar would fit in with their family, and how Loki would react to his new friend, but something surprising was about to happen. When they arrived home, Loki and their dog Thor came right over to meet the newcomer. But when both animals saw how huge Edgar was, they stepped back carefully. Loki was normally a brave cat, but seemed small next to the giant, and Thor was just a tiny chihuahua, so Edgar looked even bigger next to him. The couple chose to go slow with introductions to give all the animals time to feel comfortable with each other. Edgar was allowed to look around his new house while Loki and Thor stayed in a different room. Going slowly and carefully was important to make this succeed, and Jenna felt confident her other two pets would soon fall in love with Edgar's amazing personality. For some time, Edgar looked around his new surroundings with curiosity. After he had explored every room many times, he decided to lie down and rest. It had been a big day, leaving one family and starting with another, so it made sense that he was sleepy. But when he woke up just 30 minutes later, Edgar seemed perfectly normal, just as sweet and loving as he'd been at the shelter. There was no scary health problem, no rushed trips to the vet. Instead, something much more wonderful was happening. Jenna watched in amazement as Edgar started to truly calm down for what might have been the first time in years. The couple spent the next few days helping Edgar get really comfortable. They'd never thought it would go so smoothly, and Edgar seemed to love the calm and peaceful feeling of his new home. While Edgar was getting used to things, Jenna worked on helping Edgar, Thor, and Loki become friends. The more time Thor and Loki spent around the big cat, the more they started to see there was nothing scary about him, and that he just wanted to be buddies. Loki was the first one to play with his new friend, while Thor watched from nearby until he felt brave enough to join in. Jenna was thrilled to see Edgar doing so well in ways she'd never expected. It looked like he'd finally let himself truly relax and have fun when he understood that his new family just wanted to care for him. All the worry and fear seemed to disappear from him as he became part of his new family. As weeks went by, Edgar, Loki, and Thor became close friends. They were often seen resting together, a funny-looking group enjoying the warm sun or sleeping on a bed. Edgar was really showing himself to be a kind giant, proving to be a loving and loyal friend. "He's like a sweet giant," Jenna would say lovingly. "I can just lift him up and hug him. He's very affectionate." What his old family had said about him seemed stranger to Jenna than ever, and she could only guess how much the little children must have scared the poor cat with how they acted, making a pattern where Edgar would follow them, something the family saw as bothering but was really just a confused giant trying to figure out why they ran away from him. Edgar's calm and loving behavior was totally different from what had been told when he was left at the shelter. She would never know why the sweet cat had been blamed instead of the children being shown how to play with him the right way, but their mistake was definitely her family's good luck, and they were thrilled to have Edgar with them. Jenna was delighted to find that taking care of Edgar was nothing but happiness. "He gets along wonderfully with our other dog and cat," Jenna shared with joy. "He enjoyed playing with Thor and Loki and looked happier than ever. When he wasn't playing, he'd find Jenna or Rich to snuggle and sleep with, taking up as much room as he could. He's fit right in like he's been here forever already. We completely adore him," Jenna said excitedly. "You're such a big sweetie," she would tell him lovingly, and they didn't care at all. They were just glad to see him so happy. Many months had gone by, and Edgar had gotten used to his new life like he'd always been there. Jenna would always be grateful that her random Facebook scrolling had brought her to the sweet giant. It was obvious that Edgar had finally found where he was meant to be in the world. Did you like this story? Would you take home a 21-pound cat if his old family said he was aggressive with kids? Tell us in the comments. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and leave a like. Sometimes the truth is not what people say. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Have a great day.